Hello everyone, my name is Rafal and welcome to my vlog. So before I jump into today's topic, I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone who attend my workshops in Raleigh in North Carolina. I had fantastic time and I was just extremely happy with those 2 days. I hope you guys have learned a lot, and I hope I'll see you guys very soon. So thank you for your hospitality, for showing me the city and this wonderful 2 days. So thank you again. So let's jump in today's vlog, and I just want to talk about something which bugs me for a while, and I want to address those things. So as you guys probably know, I'm a huge fan of YouTube channels, and I read a lot of articles about photography. This is my everyday thing which I do, and I'm trying to consume as much information as possible because that's, of course, is my passion and that's what I love to do. So I just want to talk today about speed lights, and I'm not going to be talking about settings. I'm not going to be talking of type of speed lights which you can find out there. As you guys probably know, there's tons of them recently, and variety is simply endless. But at the same time, I found there's a lot of misleading information about speed lights, and I just want to talk about it because, as you guys probably know, I'm a huge advocate of speed lights. I've been using them for the last 6-7 years, and I would, well, I don't want to say I would never go back to like strobes or anything like that, but the stuff what I do, they work perfect. And I know that there's a lot of photographers out there who are debating, which directions should they go. Should they buy, expensive strobes or expensive lights, or they should stick to speed lights? And I just want to clarify some of those informations which are out there, and I deeply believe they're not completely true, and they are misleading photographers, and some of us, they're getting really confused about it. And before I jump into it, I just want to say a couple of things. First of all, I'm not getting paid by any of those speed light companies. So this is my personal experience I want to share with you. And also, I'm going to be talking about speed lights related to my portrait and my headshot work. So please don't, kind of take some of those information that, you can use speed lights for, some other kind of type of work, because there are certain jobs which you have to do and you need some powerful strobes. But the work I do, I found speed lights works best, and I just want to kind of talk a little bit more in detail about some of those things which people are getting confused, or they're getting misled, or basically some of those guys, they're putting false information about speed lights. And I want to really touch this because I think it's extremely important, and I want to also make sure that a lot of those guys who are getting into photography and they trying to pretty much start off something, and they can afford expensive strobes, I think speed lights it's a good start, and they can do tons of things with them, not realizing that they are not only capable of doing this, but also they can give them something, as I said, to start, and they don't have to wait years or months, or sometimes they never gonna get into photography because they cannot simply afford some expensive lights. So let's jump into it and let's discuss some of those arguments. So the most ridiculous argument I've been hearing is that if you're a photographer and you're a professional, in order to impress your clients, like, you have to have expensive lights, and you have to just look like you know what you're doing because you have that type of equipment. And this is one of those, as I said, the most ridiculous things I ever heard. Especially, whenever you shoot professionally, or you're even amateur, whatever, the one thing which you want to impress your clients is your photos. It's not your equipment. And I've been hearing this argument constantly that, you have to have this equipment because, like, that's why people would hire you. Over my last 15 years of my career, I have never even one client who was questioning my equipment. Most of my clients, you know, they look my images and that's what impressed them. And how I'm gonna get there, you know, nobody questions that. And nobody's gonna say, well, you know, if you using speed lights, I'm not gonna be hiring you because I'm looking for a photographer who is, for example, using some expensive strobes. This is just a ridiculous argument in my opinion, and I think a lot of us getting caught up in this. And you know, this is just a dead end in my opinion, and this is a wrong path. Again, you know, we're living also in the era where, you know, we definitely focus lots about equipment, but again, you know, the most important thing is the end results, is your images and how they look like, and nobody's gonna ever, you know, question, you know, what type of equipment do you have. The next argument, what I've been hearing is, and this is another really interesting one, is that, you know, if you are a professional photographer, you have to have equipment which is reliable and, you know, you can trust the equipment. And again, if you're getting the most expensive one or expensive stuff, you know, those things, you can trust more and they're more reliable. And then, you know, if you have some, you know, very important shoots, you know, like you have to have something where you can trust. So there's a lot of things to unpack here. And I just want to kind of go through this whole thing step by step. Unfortunately, nowadays, every equipment breaks. Doesn't matter, it's a speed light or it's like, you know, expensive light, those things breaks. And of course, you know, the time when they're gonna break, it's when we're shooting. So, you know, we have to always kind of like, you know, have that little bit of kind of, I would say, different approach to understanding this whole thing. And just because you have expensive light, as I said, you know, doesn't mean it's not gonna break. The chances are smaller, but still, you just never know when this whole thing is gonna happen and when they're gonna break. On the top of that, the thing is that, you know, I don't know many photographers who, for example, have those really expensive lights and they buying another set just to have a backup. Like maybe there are some, but you know, those are probably the ones who have a lot of money, because if you, let's say, spending, I don't know, $5,000-$6,000 on your lights, you're not gonna spend another $6,000 just to have a backup one. Which is another story with the speed lights, because I have several of them, and you know, if something goes wrong, then I have a backup stuff. So that's, I would say, convenience when it comes to the speed lights. On the top of that, what I would like to add, and this is also my personal experience, I don't want to say, you know, that other lights don't break. I have never had any issues with my speed lights, and I never had situation in my entire career that my speed lights fail on me. So, you know, saying that, you know, more expensive lights, they're more reliable because, you know, the speed lights probably they might break, and they probably break more often. This is simply not true. And I think this is another misleading information that, you know, those lights, they less reliable. So, you know, let's kind of put that on the side, because this is simply not true. So another argument I've been hearing quite often is the color shift. That, you know, if you're, again, professional photographer and you know, shooting some important, you know, projects, you know, you don't want to have that color shift. And I'm gonna just tell you, this is just pure BS. I'll tell you why. Well, couple of things. First of all, I found that, you know, first of all, we're living in the digital era where, you know, all those things are really easy fixable in post-processing. So that's not a kind of big of a deal. Also, what I've noticed with my speed lights, you know, sometimes I'm getting this little bit of, you know, shift of color, but the shift is so small that it's not making huge of a difference to the image. Plus, you know, I still kind of go through my raw processing where I get, you know, to the image certain tweaks here and there to get those perfect tones. I also think that, you know, people who even shooting some, you know, expensive lights, they also have some very small color shifts, and those images which are coming out of the camera, they not perfect. They still have to go through some kind of process to get, you know, the proper toning and the color white balance and all this stuff. But most of the time I didn't have any issues with that. And, you know, even again, if there is some shifts, this is not a problem. I think, you know, back in the days where people were shooting film, that may be a huge issue, but nowadays I don't think that's a big of a problem. Okay, so the next argument what I've been hearing constantly, and this is something also which is kind of interesting to me, is there's like kind of three things: is the power, is the misfiring, and is the recycling time of, you know, the speed lights. That, you know, apparently it's a huge issue, and, you know, people want to have you know, equipment which can fires, you know, I don't know, 10 flashes a second, whatever, and that's what, you know, makes the flash actually works properly. And I don't really agree with this for a couple of reasons. Well, first of all, let's start with this misfiring and recycling time, because that's apparently, it's a huge argument, and I just want to kind of really dig into this, because I deeply believe this is extremely important. So first of all, when it comes to the headshots and the portrait work, I deeply believe that, you know, it's better when we can somehow slow down our process of shooting, because first of all, you don't really want to, you know, kind of blast your client with, I don't know, 5-10 flashes per second, and you want to just shoot like crazy, because first of all, this is gonna make your client uncomfortable. Second of all, like, you gonna look like you're crazy, and you just keep shooting, and it's not gonna reflect, and that's gonna make your images looks better. It's gonna definitely impact the images. So, you know, having kind of, you know, lights which kind of force you to slow down the process of creating your portrait or headshots, whatever, it's actually good for you, because then you have time to think about it. You can have time to interact with your client. You have a time to really think about what you're doing. And I came from, you know, wedding background where, you know, I used to kind of going nuts when it comes to shooting. I was just trying to get as many photos as possible, and that was, again, one of my, I would say, promotional kind of thing, that I was like, well, you're gonna get 4,000 or 5,000 images, where now I'm actually just going kind of opposite way. So what is important for me is pretty much to give the client less but way better quality stuff. And that, you know, thing that slows down your process, it's gonna work in your benefit. So, you know, you have to know how your speed lights work, and you have to understand the process. You have to understand what you can kind of expect from them. And then when you figured it out, and I found, you know, it's not big of a deal, you don't have those issues at all. You don't really, I don't really feel it throughout my shoots that, you know, like, oh, I have to wait because my, you know, my speed light have to, you know, just kind of recycle and get ready for the next shot. I know how this whole thing works, and, you know, I can set them up certain way with a certain power, so, you know, I don't have that issue at all. And speaking of power, you know, speed lights, there's two sides of this story. One of them is, you know, that when it comes to the power, and this is what I really want to point it out here, you know, the speed lights, they're not gonna give you as much power as, you know, some really high-end strobes. There's no question about it. I'm not gonna argue this. I get it, I understand, but, you know, you also have to understand how much power you need for your images, how much light, and, you know, how much stuff you need to push to get certain image. And I found that speed lights for headshot and portrait work, they work brilliantly, you know, and you don't really need, you know, crazy amount of power to create those images. Especially, you know, I don't shoot much in, you know, like a broad light, or, you know, I don't need like overpower the sun and all this crazy stuff. I don't need that, because most of my shots are done indoors, or even if I'm shooting outside, I'm shooting in the shadows, and the speed lights work perfectly for that, right? So you know, again, if I would have a photo shoot where I need this power, I would just rent this stuff and then I can just basically have equipment which, you know, helps me to get where I want to be. But for the type of work what I'm doing, I found that speedlights giving me way more power than I even need, and I can really easily control them, and I can really easy get the stuff what I need and what I want. And this is not big of a deal for me, and you know, I don't think that I would need way more power that I have, and you know what the speedlights are providing me. I want to add one more thing, because this is another, I would say, issue which is constantly coming to me, and people quite often kind of talk to me about it, because you know, you can go really low with the power on the speedlight, so you can actually just kind of bleed in way more ambient light. Where you have really powerful strobes, you can't do that, because the light have so much power that just kills everything. And then people have to put some, you know, ND filters, and they have to just reduce the power. Sometimes they simply can't. So I found, again, for the type of work what I'm doing, you know, the speedlight's giving me way more control on you know, the light what I need and what I have to use, or what I need to add to make my images look the way they look. And I'm sure people who are following me, they are familiar with the stuff what I do. So there's a couple other stuff which I would like to kind of give a credit to the speedlights. First one is definitely portability. So I can travel with them. I don't have to drag any heavy equipment, you know, to my shoots. I can literally pack all my stuff in one little bag and just basically throw on my back, and I'm ready to go. And the second thing is definitely safety. You know, I don't have to have and carry any, you know, batteries. I don't have to carry any extension cords, or you know, stuff like that. So that's really convenient. And the last thing, and I mentioned that at the very beginning, I just want to give another big credit to the speedlights, is definitely the price. You don't have to spend crazy amount of money on the lights, and you know, sometimes people can afford them, and you know, kudos for those guys. If you can afford them, go for it. But you know, especially for those guys who, let's say, living in some countries where, you know, those prices they pretty much out of their reach to get some, you know, high-end strobes. So you know, the speedlights definitely give you everything what you need, and they can give you, you know, kind of starting point, and they can be a lot of fun. You know, you can have extra ones because, you know, they not as expensive, and you can definitely you know, enjoy and explore photography. And that's my whole point of this, that don't limit yourself to, you know, to the things that, you know, you have to buy those expensive stuff because, you know, like everybody else is doing, or people are telling you you should buy them because you're gonna have more power, you're gonna have more control, you're gonna have all this recycling times and all this, you know, color shifts, they're not gonna be a problem and stuff like that. Just be careful. I think, you know, just try to enjoy photography, and basically use what you can and what you can afford, and to kind of get into this, and pretty much have fun of the process of creating something interesting. And the last thing what I want to say, don't put too much stuff in your head when it comes to, you know, the equipment. I found that, you know, the more you do that, the more you actually just losing the enjoyment of, you know, photography, and you focus on the wrong thing. Enjoy of the process, enjoy of, you know, creating images. Try to be you know, creative, and you know, use whatever you have in your hands and whatever you can afford to create images. Okay, I hope that was interesting. I hope you guys you know, will get something out of this. I know I'm yapping a lot, and I know some of you guys don't like that, so I'm really sorry, and you know, I want to apologize, but I definitely want to address this because I think, you know, this debate is getting kind of ridiculous in my opinion, and I just want to say something about it because I think we're living in an amazing era of, you know, having fantastic equipment, and you know, we focus way too much on things which in my opinion they're less important, and then, you know, instead of focusing on, you know, things which, you know, kind of makes us happy and, you know, makes others people happy, and we can definitely do something which is gonna bring enjoyment to our life. So if you have any comments, and if you want to share some of your thoughts on what I have said, please, you know, put some information in the comment section. I'll try my best to respond to them. And meanwhile, have a guys fantastic shooting, and also have a fantastic weekend, and I'll chat with you guys soon. Bye bye.